Rock number 2 coming up, and ooh! Native to the eastern Appalachian region of the United States, long-tailed salamanders get their name from their long tail. It takes up about 60% of their body length.
Hey there, if you guys like that video and you like frogs, you like salamanders, got some things I needed to tell you. Come on. So what a lot of people don't know is that amphibians are actually the most threatened vertebrate class on the planet. Now, there's a couple of reasons as to why that is. Habitat destruction, loss of wetlands, loss of habitat integrity, climate change. They're simply just not able to adjust or move. But the biggest one right now is actually going to be disease. Actually, two diseases that I want to talk to you about right now. They are both called chytridiomycosis. First one is actually going to be Batrachochytrium dendrobatidis. That is what causes one version of chytridiomycosis. Basically, it is a fungal infection that gets into the skin of amphibians and causes them not to be able to do certain metabolic processes, but it's basically kind of like an overdose of keratin. What it might actually look like is kind of like lesions on their skin, particularly on their back and in between their little toe beans on their hands. BD, as it's called, as a shortened version of it, is actually particularly infective for frogs and toads and things like that, and so whenever we do any kind of sampling, it's typically for BD, it's going to be on frogs and toads. But there's actually another one. It was just recently described in 2013, I believe, by Martel et al. It is called a Batrachochytrium salamandrivorans. Kind of hard to say, but it more specifically targets salamanders. It causes exactly the same symptoms as BD does, so there's BD and then there's B-sal, so Batrachochytrium dendrobatidis and Batrachochytrium salamandrivorans. They're basically the same thing. One targets one group, one targets another group. What I want to say is if you are going to handle these species, please clean your hands before, dip your hands into the water before you touch any of them, and for the love of God, clean yourself before you go from one wetland to another. B-sal is not in the United States yet, but it will be because everything always comes into the United States. Have a boat, if you use waders to go hunting or something like that, you have to sanitize if you care about these species at all. Let's help our little buddies out. Let's help salamanders. Let's help some frogs. Let's try to keep these things around for as long as we can, but we gotta try and keep them healthy. We're losing them too fast. You little stupid ass bitch, I ain't fucking with you. See, that's the thing I try and stress the most, especially when I'm talking to just regular people and not trying to convince them of anything, is that it's not about you. It's not about you using a plastic straw. It's not about you driving your car or taking a plane for work. It's about you taking your car because you have to. Because corporations have lobbied against any kind of public transport in the United States. They've lobbied against any kind of, high-speed train system to where you have to spend the money doing that. I don't like that. It's not about the individual person's responsibility to fix the climate. It's about how we are prevented from doing better.
Did you know Cherokee Nation has a bison ranch?
Okay, if you didn't get a chance to, go actually watch the full video from the Cherokee Nation. It's fantastic and definitely educational. I'll try and tag the Native Plant Talk guy down in the description below. When you combine the way that things were done before colonialization, so I'm talking fire for most of the central United States, and controlled and sustainable hunting practices, these bison herds that we used to have sustained millions of people. And with that, with colonialization and the overhunting of dozens, hundreds of species whenever the Europeans came and colonized America, we used to be able to sustain ways of life for generations. Central Plains used to have kind of different ecosystems within it. So you had tall grass prairie, mid grass prairie, and then short grass prairie, and then you had mixed grass prairie and whatnot. But these bison basically lived on something called blue stem grasses, and that grass
is becoming very, very endangered because we have taken fire out of our ecosystems. The native plant talk guy talks about this all the time, the importance of fire. If you have property that you can manage, and even if you want to manage it for cattle and whatnot, fire is such a very important tool. And having native species or native species of plants and native species of plants for other native species is so important. If you have the ability to do that, do it. These species need your help. I'd also like to say thank you to the Cherokee Nation, because you guys actually put me through school and you guys gave me the ability to actually go for my PhD in ecology. And so I would just like to say thank you, and we'll see you. Let me go ahead and reply with "you're correct" under a couple circumstances. So turtles are actually really good about finding their way home. They can use a number of different methods to do it. They can use the sun's position, polarized light, magnetism in some cases, depending on the turtle, and even landmarks. And actually, just as a little side note, newts, whenever they are brought indoors to do experiments with, they will actually orient themselves correctly, even when they're about 30 kilometers away. So even within 30 kilometers, they still kind of know which way is home. But there is something called homing, and turtles do it too well. And what I mean by that is you can move some turtles a significant distance, even something, around 300 kilometers is about the max that we found. They are going to spend the rest of their lives trying to get back to where they need to go, if they're wild caught. So if you take those turtles out from the wild, they will literally stress the rest of their lives trying to get back to where they need to go. And that is where you're going to run into a lot of your problems of getting hit by cars or starving, because they are just so stressed that they will literally kill themselves trying to get back to where they need to go. Now, from what I've heard about just moving them across the road to help them, I've never heard of any issues like that. I've done it hundreds of times. These turtles have all been fine from what I can tell from all the trackers that we've put on them. But there is something that you can do to them, and if you pick them up and you turn them over, and you just basically turn them over again, or you keep turning them over and over and over, you can basically twist their organs inside because they're kind of free floating. So there is risk when you pick them up. If you just basically pick them up, take them the same direction that they're going across the road, and put them on the ground over there, there's really not that much issue. But if you were taking them out of their environment and taking them home, you could theoretically stress them to death, because they just want to go home. They want to go where they need to go. They're honest to a fault. If you're wondering what it's actually called whenever turtles go back to the same spot to breed year after year, it's called breeding site philopatry. Now you know. Now, one thing I did wanted to say and kind of follow up on, yeah, sure, you can pull newts out and they'll orient themselves at the 35 kilometers. They probably won't actually find their way back to where they're wanting to go. Same with turtles. When it comes to, the 300 kilometer, like that is their max to where they are generally going to get somewhere close to where they want to go. But actually having them go back to their specific spot that they need to go, it's likely not going to happen, just due to habitat destruction, alteration, and them